Welcome to Behind the Aisle podcast, where we're just two wedding professionals sharing a no bullshit approach to what goes on behind the scenes in the industry. My name is Katie, and I'm a wedding planner.
And I'm Sarah. I'm a wedding photographer.
Hello, friends. We're talking about my favorite topic, literally on this planet, boundaries.
Boundaries.
Oh, yeah. Boundaries.
We love boundaries over here.
Samey sames.
We love them.
I also feel like this, I feel like boundaries, just this topic in general, is talked about a whole lot, especially with our culture really starting to highlight on mental health, like awareness and wellness. And the word boundaries, I also feel like gets overused a bit.
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily understand what a boundary is. Again, it's just one of those things where it's just overused.
Thrown around. Without implementation.
Correct. And it just loses also, I don't know if it loses its meaning. Again, it's just so overused that people I just don't understand. I don't think they understand like what the true meaning of a boundary is.
Yeah. Honestly, I think boundaries are the reason that I have been going for as long as I've been going. Because I feel like I would have given in if I had kept things the way that they were without the boundaries that I have set now. But if I were to kept the things that going the way that they were going when I first started, I would have been done in like, I don't know, a year and a half. I would have been out.
I don't have like any obviously statistics to pull out about this or whatever, but a lot of like our fellow wedding professionals that I like talk to, those that have been in the game now for a good amount of years, that's one of the number one things that they say is like, I like now the boundaries that I have set for myself now, if I could go back and tell my like, you know, rookie self, this is what I would tell them like in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Is setting those parameters.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when it comes to boundaries, one, when you're first starting, I don't think it's talked about too well. Now I feel like it's different. I think when we were first starting out, like, you know, 2015, 2016, I don't think it was really talked about a whole lot of like setting those boundaries. You know, we've talked about it in other episodes too, where there was just different, encouragements of like do styled shoots and like, you know, we talked about publications and how that was a really big thing then. And like what you need to like start your like, you know, start your business. They talked about CRMs. They talked about like in the business stuff, but I don't think they really talked about like the emotional, what it's like starting a business, especially within the wedding industry in and of itself. Just entrepreneurship in general. I don't think any kind of like mental health parameters or any kind of like advice was ever given like when we first started. And now with the mental health, like wellness and, you know, awareness, like movement that's really started the past couple of years. I'm going to say years, probably like maybe two. I mean, that is technically a couple, but whatever. I think it's now just starting to get around where those that are starting in the field, they do have that advisement of like start setting boundaries early so that you're not having to, you know, you're not potentially like burning yourself out.
Yeah. I think boundaries are good for like your present self too, but also extremely beneficial for your future self.
Yep.
And I also feel like boundaries and hustle culture kind of go hand in hand, or lack of boundaries and hustle culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like hustle culture is another podcast topic that we could talk about separately.
Oh, 1,000%.
But I really do feel like they go hand in hand. And I feel like once you set those, it's a lot easier to get out of that hustle culture.
Yep.
And when we first started out, and I feel like, I mean, I can't really speak for people first starting out now on how is either the same or different than when we did. But I feel like when you don't set those boundaries, then that hustle culture gets really, really extreme because you're like, I got to take anything that I can. Yep. I got to say yes to everyone. I got to say yes to everything because I don't know the difference between what I should say yes to and what would benefit me by saying no.
Correct.
And I just feel like that's something that either I would hope that it's changed at this point, and I would hope that people with that mental health movement are seeing like as a newcomer to set boundaries. And I feel like I also tell people that, and I feel like the boundaries too also can play into the comparison game a little bit as well, on the boundaries that you set for yourself as far as what you take in from the industry as like on a social media standpoint.
Yeah, I totally agree. Cause like I know we're, you know, when we jump in now, into like the meat of the episode, we're going to talk about like boundaries in regards to like client to business owner, like client to you, and then, vendor to vendor, but then like personal boundaries that you have to like set for yourself in order for you to, you know, maintain yourself and maintain like your well-being in and of itself too. So, I feel like, now me having like done it like for 7 years, and I know we're like on the same time frame, those that are like somewhat brand newish to having their own business, maybe like they're 1-2 years old, that sort of thing too. One of the very first things that like the question that's asked, like, hey, like, you know, if you could go back, like, what would you do type situation. I actually do end up telling them like, what people say now is I should have started with boundaries, but I already went in with that in the very, very beginning.
Oh, good.
Just because I think it's a personality thing for me.
Yeah.
Me having learned, you know, obviously my entire life being neurodivergent, but recently like coming about and like learning that I'm a neurodivergent person, I get it now how I compartmentalized things when I first started. So I kind of naturally created boundaries just because organizational wise, that's the only way that I was going to be able to like do the two things that I was doing at the time. But anyway, so, but I do backbone or, you know, I backboard that in the sense, and I tell people all the time when they come to me, it's like, hey, how do I set boundaries? Or, you know, how do I get started with it? Or what kind of boundaries do I start off with? Like, what are some things that I should go ahead and put in place now? And one of the major things that I do end up telling them is that start with yourself first, boundaries with yourself, because then that's a really great setup for you. And then everything else will kind of like fall. Because also boundaries too, again, I feel like every topic that we're ever going to talk about on our podcast is also relative.
Yeah.
Like someone's boundary that they have for themselves is not a one size fits all for somebody else.
Absolutely.
So like the boundary that you set up for like you and your clients, it might not work for me and mine, and vice versa.
And we also have two different jobs.
Oh, correct.
Too.
1,000%.
You can't really take the boundaries of one person that may have the same type of job, but also do different things. You can't just, it's like when people on the internet like try to get skincare regimens from random people that they see with good skin on the internet. And you're like, how do you do your skincare? And you're like, this is what I do, but it might not work for you because you're a completely different fucking person.
For real. Like I always thought that was really interesting. It's like, yeah, for people. Yeah. I never like thought about that, I guess, until like now that you pointed it out. But I just look at the internet. I'm like, I don't really give a shit what you put on your fucking face. Anybody else? I don't really care. But also says the same bitch that like I followed Beauty by Hiram like when he first started out like on TikTok, and he was like CeraVe everything, and I'm like, oh yeah, let me chuck all this like apricot scrubby shit out there.
Okay, let's not put that on your face. So, but yeah, CeraVe is a little bit better than the apricot scrub.
Oh yeah. So then I was like full on. I was like, this is what Hiram says that I have to buy, so I'm gonna get it. But actually, like legitimately, he was coming from a scientific standpoint. It wasn't just like he obviously is an influencer, but he's not one where he's like, buy this because I make money off of you. It was more like, no, buy this because it's got good shit in it. Yeah. Stop buying the other shit.
St. Ives.
Yeah. So
anyway, I thought that was like kind of a relative.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about it that way. That was a good, comparison between the two. So, yeah, so I feel like when talking about boundaries, I feel like Sarah and I, we're going to share like what our own boundaries are. Again, here's the disclaimer. This might not work for you. So you really do have to take a deep soul searching look inside yourself.
That was so soothing.
Was it? Because it makes me want to vomit after I just said it that way. I'm not good with like that whole like
mantras.
Yeah, I don't do any of that. Yeah. My therapist likes to try to do like self love things or whatever, like let's talk about how we love ourselves, and I'm like, Sean, can I just like bitch to you like my week and just move on? Okay, that'd be great, because I don't want to. Okay, anyway. Jesus, that's a boundary that I've set for myself. I don't want to look in the mirror and being like, you are beautiful. That makes me uncomfortable.
You is kind. You is smart. You is important.
Yes. Which is so true. All of those things. You are beautiful in every way. I'm just
okay. It's a song. You are beautiful.
Oh, I forgot about that. I wasn't singing it. I didn't know. That's not what my intention was. I'm not singing, guys. I'm not singing on this podcast. It's going to be absolutely fucking terrible. I didn't think about it. Now that song's stuck in my head.
Great.
Fuck you, man. Oh my God. Anyways, boundaries. Bitch, what the fuck?
That was so perfect. Okay.
What are your boundaries, Sarah? What are your
my
boundaries?
My client boundaries first. We're doing that? Client boundaries?
Sure. Why
okay.
not?
My boundaries, I don't allow texting unless I need to text on the day of. Whether that is for sessions or for wedding days, that is the only time that I allow texting. If you text me, I will send you straight back to my email. Nice. I will answer that question in an email through my CRM.
Beautiful.
And that's another thing is I have a CRM client. What does that stand for? Client relation management, I think. Client relation. Yeah. Is that? Yeah. Okay. Well, I have a CRM. I use HoneyBook, and I keep everything in HoneyBook. So invoicing, payments, contracts, communication, all of that done through there. That way, I don't have to go through 3 different platforms to find information that we may or may not have discussed.
Yep.
And when we do phone calls, I also take notes on those phone calls in HoneyBook as well, so that it's all. I would really love it, like to get a transcriber of some sort, like a recorder, like to record the phone call, so that I don't have I can just go back and listen if I have to reiterate something. But anyway, yeah. So those are the 2 biggest boundaries that I have. And then I over communicate with my clients as far as what to expect on throughout the process of us. She's so cute. She's like rolling around. I have a welcome email that they get every time that I book somebody. You get a welcome email that breaks down every single thing that you are to expect throughout the process of our time together, whether that's 6 months, a year and a half, whatever it is. And I try my very, very best to stick within those parameters of everything that I've written out for them. So I can't have anyone come to me and be like, what is this? Per my last email. So yeah, I try and lay everything out as far as office hours go, gallery deliveries, everything is reiterated again. And that seems to help a lot with the random questions that, people tend to ask me.
That's awesome.
So
now, do people try to push your boundary?
Not really.
Good.
Only with texting and Instagram DMs.
Oh, yes, the Instagram DMs.
I understand why the Instagram DMs happen, because it's a very fleeting moment that they just kind of remember something, and then they want to message me about it based off of they reply to a story or something like that. So I then take that Instagram DM and I put it back into HoneyBook, because I will lose that information.
Oh yeah.
Whatever that is, I will never remember that you DM'd me on Instagram.
Or God forbid, my always biggest fear with that kind of stuff, if it's not in a program that I use or that I pay for or whatever, what if Instagram just, I don't know, all of a sudden disappears?
Yeah. Yep. And then I guess workflows on top of that. I try and push everything, whatever I can do to put it in HoneyBook, I will put it in HoneyBook. Whether you email me directly as an inquiry, you go back into HoneyBook. I just put everything in there because that is my safe space.
Yep.
That is where everything lives. And I tell everyone that, and a lot of people will try and, send me straight emails through Gmail, and then I have to put it back in HoneyBook. And that's fine. I'm not against the back end work of me physically putting stuff in there. Like I won't get upset if somebody emails me at an inquiry that's not through HoneyBook. I will be a little peeved if somebody cold calls me. Like I hate that. But that's just, I think, what generation am I? Am I a millennial?
I think you're still a millennial.
Am I? What I guess that's the millennial in me. That's like, don't call me. Please don't call me.
Same.
So that's the only time that I get like a little bit, I don't want to say irritated because I'm not irritated by it, but like my anxiety goes up a little bit. Just like, please don't call me. Yeah. So I don't care if people DM me with an inquiry or Instagram, or not Instagram, but email me with an inquiry. However, I will say, please either refer to my HoneyBook.
You just kind of like help them, like just a little U-turn.
Just a little circle back. Just a little.
Thanks so much for reaching out. Can you go ahead and go to this link, fill out my inquiry form? Yeah.
Yeah. But I won't do that for full inquired emails because that's a little excessive.
True. I feel like, maybe.
I also don't answer DM. I've come to the realization that I just shouldn't answer DMs.
Yep.
Always. So if anyone inquires me, and it says it on my Instagram, no DMs, but people do still like ask me questions about inquiring on Instagram.
Weird.
And I don't answer them.
Because I feel like that is something that I do see more often now, that I can definitely tell when people have had like inquiry, like issues via DM, like they've had so much, like they've had issues with it so badly where they have to put it into their bio as like, I will not respond.
It's in my bio, I believe,
to an inquiry.
Like because via DM. I want it there. Like I'm a very big like overeducator. Like I find that the more that I write out for people, the less questions I have asked. Yep. So as long as it's written out somewhere, then I can either refer back to it. I'm a very big, like, let me cover my ass kind of thing. Like, like in my contracts, everything is very detailed, written out. And then I put the no DMs in my bio, because if somebody does DM me and then they get mad at me for some reason because I don't answer,
you have a reference.
I have a reference like, hey, sorry, I don't accept DMs. Like, I don't accept DMs because I will lose all of the information that you have given me.
Yep.
And I will not remember. And first of all, also, I suck. I suck at texting. I suck at answering DMs. I'm very big on just ignoring those types of things because I got way too much shit going on right now that like I just suck at it. So I don't want people to get mad because I'm not replying. If it goes in my email, I strategically check my email at certain parts of the day, and I'm determined like that will get answered.
Yeah, valid. It's so valid. I feel like that's also why we vibe so. There's so many things why we vibe so well. But yeah, it's the same. Like I have the same. It's literally almost the same boundaries. Actually, not almost the same. The same boundaries.
Great.
Yeah. Don't text me. I actually have it in my contract. Do you have it in your contract too about the whole no texting me thing?
I don't, but I should.
Oh, I have a whole clause.
That's
I have like underneath like the communication clause. It literally says,
"Ooh, you have a communication clause."
Yeah. You didn't know this?
Ooh, I like this.
I have a whole.
Tell me about this.
It literally states in there my office hours, which I am I'm very cognizant of. Like if my office hours were to ever change, they've been pretty consistent since I went full time.
That's a boundary of mine too. Office hours.
Yeah. So office hours, they're in the communication clause, the communication method, in and of itself. So I talk about that in consultation. I talk about it in our onboarding, walkthrough that I do for Aisle Planner, which is my CRM, which I looked up, customer relationship management.
Oh,
CRM. So it was pretty close.
Cute.
But yeah, so I use Aisle Planner because it's more geared towards wedding planners specifically. HoneyBook, I feel like is great. I do have other wedding planners who do use HoneyBook, but Aisle Planner is just kind of like a one catch-all situation. At any rate, but so under the communication clause, my office hours, and typical response times depending on the season. I also have like my vacation responder up a good amount of time.
Love your vacation responder.
Thanks.
I have a love-hate relationship with vacation responders.
I know, same. Same.
But your vacation responder is so extensive, and I appreciate it because it makes sense. I just hate vacation responders.
I know, because it's like, God damn it.
I wish there was a way that you could, if you're having a conversation with somebody through email, like I wish there was a way that you could just have it be the very first email.
Yes.
That, hey, you get a vacation responder. But look, Google, I'm actually having a conversation. This vacation responder is not actually a vacation responder. It's just like a little disclaimer.
Yeah.
Please stop sending me vacation responders every time I send you an email.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I know. I
get it.
I try really hard to have my vacation responder up, but sometimes I will keep it off, even when I'm not in like the office or whatever, because I know, because of that reason, because I know some people, especially not, I wish it could be like, obviously, I don't think there's any way that you could do it. Like from vendor to vendor, I don't want the vacation responder on. From me to client, I want the vacation responder to be on.
Yeah.
So, because sometimes, I am responding to, but okay, here, let me backtrack. Another boundary that I have set up for myself too is like, if I am working past technically the office hours, scheduling emails to go out at a certain time point, that is literally my favorite thing to do. Yep. Because I know in my brain now, I've technically like checked off that box in my head of like, I've responded to them, because I know it's going to be, even though they haven't gotten it into their inbox just yet.
Right.
But I do know that I've technically already responded to the person. So no, like in the communication clause, the no texting thing, they have to use Aisle Planner in order to communicate with me. If they do, the same thing with you. Like if they were to, I don't have DM issues, which is really great. Thank God. But because I'm not on Instagram like at all. Yeah. I don't even post on my fucking Instagram. It's really annoying. So I always, if they were to direct email me, I respond to that email within Aisle Planner saying like, hey, I saw a note, that you sent me or whatever in regards to this or whatever. And then I do a nice gentle reminder of like, hey, just want to gently remind you that, I need you to like talk to me in Aisle Planner, because it's a better way for me to keep everything like organized and whatnot.
Just ignore that. That's just for my brain.
Oh, okay. I was like, are you going to tell me that like there's something on my face or
no,
something?
No.
Yeah.
No, for those of you that are listening and not watching, I text Katie something, but I text her because I had a brain blast and I was going to lose it. So I texted her and she checked it thinking that I was telling her something bad. But
I was nervous. I was like, is something happening behind me? Like, is there something on my face? Because there's a spider crawling up my arm. No. So I do have a communication clause.
That's great. I'm gonna do that. So what happens if there is a breach of contract, quote unquote breach of contract? Do you really like enforce like this is a breach of contract? Because I feel like that's an easy way to breach contract.
So it's kind of like a warning system where it's like, hey, like I'm not going to fire someone if they like outside of Aisle Planner, they like email me or like they text me or whatever. I'm not gonna be like, you're fired because you just did this like for the first time. I do the same method. I respond to them. Usually it's twice. And I don't let it slide like the first time being like, oh, okay, I'll just respond to that. I'll just answer them in Aisle Planner. I'm gonna be like, here's your answer, but also gentle reminder, I need you to communicate to me, like with me in Aisle Planner. Again, this is different, obviously, for vendors, because vendors, y'all can see in my email box, the vendors that I partner with, they're not in my clients' like accounts in Aisle Planner. That's just between me and a couples. But second time, then I really do reiterate it, and I'm like, again, gentle reminder that you have to stay with an Aisle Planner, and I reiterate again the reason why I really push onto it. Letting them know that like I cannot have conversations with you via text message about your wedding day. Because then I always try to make my couples feel like they're the only couple that I'm working with.
Sure.
You want to make them feel special.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to feel special that way. However, I know that everybody is well aware that like, yes, you're not the only couple that I'm planning a wedding for. There's plenty of others.
Yeah, I try. So that's the thing I have an issue with, or I not an issue, but like something that I personally struggle with, because part of my entire brand is becoming your best friend. And you still can't text me though.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, there's a line, like, I want to make sure that you do feel special and that you feel like we're friends. And I will DM you and respond to like your DMs regarding anything other than like actual pertinent information that has to do with your wedding. Like,
yeah, I think that's a really good disclaimer.
Yeah, like I'll respond, like if you respond to like a post of mine or like ask a question in a story that's like has nothing to do, like what's the recipe or did you make that or like whatever, I'll talk to you all day long. But if it's any information that
like
has
work related stuff,
like work related stuff, like we have to keep it separate.
Yeah, definitely. No, I totally 1,000% agree with you on that one. But yeah, so the breach of contract thing though, but then normally like if I have to remind them a third time, I do then go ahead and like throw the whole like, it is in my contract that you have to communicate with me in aisle planner if you are continuing to breach like this I mentioned the word boundary. If you continue to breach this boundary, then I don't think that this is going to be a good fit for the two of us together, because I want to be able to give you the best that I can give you. And the way that I'm able to give you my best is if you follow in my systems and like in my workflows. And then I kind of throw it at him again. And I'm like, hey, just imagine if I had to try to keep track of 20 people's weddings via text message. Mm-hmm. Normally when I make it relational like that, they're like, oh yeah, like something just clicks. But I have had, it's only been like one or two in my 7-year tenure now that I've been doing this that broke the boundary, and they just kept pushing even after me telling them, and I ended up firing them. And I said, this is not going to work. If you want to have access to your wedding planner at 9 p.m. via text message, I'm not your girl. I'm totally not.
Yeah.
If that's an expectation that you have. And we parted ways, and they were like, yeah, this is what I needed. And I'm like, I can't give it to you.
One of my favorite boundaries of yours is your phone calls.
What do you mean?
Like your meetings. Because I feel like, because you do the monthly meetings.
Oh, I was like, explain.
Sorry. I feel like that deters your clients from calling you with random questions every day of every week up until the wedding day. Like, I feel like because you do those monthly meetings, like everything, even if it's small questions that they need answered, they know like, hey, I'm about to hop on a call with her in like 3 days. I'll just save it for then. And we'll go over it. Whereas like, I feel like if you don't do that, people are like, oh my God, I have this pressing question, which is not actually a pressing question of like, what color should I pick these linens for? How many table napkins do I need or some shit?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's really not important that I need to answer this at 9 p.m. Please don't call me. And then people then people start getting upset because you're not answering their questions, so they don't feel special. And then you get pissed off clients that feel like you're not doing what they feel needs to be done.
I feel like the proper way to set up any kind of boundary, regardless of whatever it is, whether it's like your office hours, whether it's your workflows, whether it's like whatever system that you have, how you're going to like have what your experience is like giving to your clients, you've got to set the expectation up front in the very, very beginning when you're starting off this relationship,
and follow through.
That too. You have to stay consistent. Like you literally have to stay consistent. And that's for anything in life. You want to lose 20 pounds? Okay. You can't just be going to the gym like once a week or whatever all that time. Well, you could, I guess. But like, then you have to, again, set expectations for yourself of like, you're not going to lose the 20 pounds in a month. Type situation. It's very, very similar. And that's with any kind of boundary at all. You have to manage your expectations, or set the expectation and manage it. And underneath that management, you have to stay consistent with it. And that's literally anything in life, whether it's in business, personal, whatever have you. I appreciate that. Yeah. I think the monthly phone calls that we do, and that's for the team across the board, right? Whether they're full service or whether they're event management or anything in between. We do monthly phone calls for everybody. One, it's because from a planner's perspective, especially for event management, those that are only coming to us and needing coordination things, a good majority of the heavy lifting that they are doing for their wedding planning is on them. So we want to, we kind of look at ourselves as like, we want you to replace your Googling with us now. So come and ask us all the questions because we'll have answers for you. But then two, it gives them like you had said, like that's the whole point of it is for us to be able to alleviate any stress that they have. And also for us, it saves our like time and energy. And so in case they're starting to dig themselves into a hole that they're not knowing that they're digging themselves into, we can clearly, like, we can backtrack and help them backtrack and being like, hey, I wouldn't advise going in this direction. This is how you do this, yada, yada, all that kind of thing.
I think you also catch things quickly too, because
that's another reason why I think
if you give people too much time, they start doing things and then all of a sudden you're in that hole and you have to dig them out of it and it's way too late.
Yep. And we do it monthly too. Like even we always start our monthly phone calls 12 months out from whenever we start working with them. So like for example, we are starting to book 2025. Wild.
Me too. I booked 2.
Jeez, Louise, man. It's insane.
Crazy.
Insane. Like, I've never in my life would have ever thought that this is how this would have been gone. But anyway, so we're starting to book 2025. Again, I still tell like my couples too, like, hey, we don't start, our monthly phone calls, until like 12 months out. But the disclaimer though for that is they can still ask the team questions in their Aisle Planner account. That's totally fine. And we'll respond back to you within Aisle Planner. But in regards to like a monthly phone call, that doesn't start 12 months out just because we have to make sure that we are like saving capacity and bandwidth for those that are, obviously they're getting married like now.
Yeah.
And within like the 6-month frame or whatever have you. So we set that up in the I've been doing that, the monthly phone call thing, since I started. And any other wedding planner friends who are listening, depending on where they're at, they probably are like, what the hell?
That seems like a lot.
It does seem like a lot. And it is a lot. It is a lot. However, we've always gotten great feedback about it.
Yeah.
I also too, like I am a constant person who is looking at our systems and our workflows. I like check in. I do temperature checks with the team being like, hey, is this workflow working for you? Because maybe what I started off with in the very beginning might not be working for the team. And so I'm okay with taking accountability and making any kind of major changes if it's not working for everybody. And so far they like it. I mean, we even go to the point where Rena, one of my associates, she, when she's working with her clients, she like what's worked out for her is that she asks her clients, hey, do you want to have a next month's meeting or do you feel comfortable with where you're at? So it's not like she's not forcing them of like, okay, let's schedule your next month meeting. Whereas for me, oh no, babe, we are talking every single month.
Yeah.
And because that just works for me in the sense of, I just want to make sure that it's more or less for my sanity of like, okay, where are you in the process? Are you about to jump off a cliff and do I need to save your life type situation?
Yeah, but I've heard your phone calls and it's not just business too. Like you actually get to know them. You ask about like, oh, how did so-and-so's job interview go? Or it's very personal at that point too, because you are literally with them month to month to month.
Yeah.
And you're kind of a sounding board too. And you check in and it creates that whole vendor to client relationship. That's a really strong one. So on the wedding day, you have so much that you can be like, oh my God, like so exciting, blah, blah, blah. Like I know so much about you and it resonates.
You really want to know why I do that? Just also, yes, because to get like to know them more from a psychological standpoint, if things start hitting the fan, like shit start hitting the fan and personal things are going on like in their life, I have some bit of an understanding as to like, why?
Right.
Like why all of a sudden are your emails a little bit more snippier? Or like, maybe you're falling behind like on your wedding planning homework and things like that too. If you've been telling me that like, a family member just got diagnosed with like a major terminal illness or like you just lost your job.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm starting to be able to piece things together so that my anxiety doesn't like go off the fucking edge and is like, oh my God, they hate you. Like, cause obviously my anxiety loves to do that all the time. But I'm checking in on them. Yes, because I want to make sure that they feel supported and that they do have a friend, like, they feel like they have a friend in the planning process, but 2, that I'm also from a psychological standpoint going to be able to help manage wedding planning process a little bit better. So then instead of maybe giving them like 10 things on their homework list that month and they just got told that their like mom has a terminal illness of some kind, I'm not going to put on a bunch of homework on for them.
Right.
Maybe I can save it for the following month. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I'm able to help them a little bit, be able to manage because wedding planning, yes, it is a full-time job. I'm able to obviously do this full-time, but they have a life outside of wedding planning. And so I just want to be mindful of that.
I love that.
So
what are your vendor to vendor boundaries?
Oh, blessed Lord. What?
Just keeping an eye on time.
Oh, okay. I was like, what the hell? You pointed. I was like, what's the cat doing? I don't know where Tilly went. Zoe's sleeping in her little tower, so she's fine. Vendor to vendor boundaries. I have workflows and I have processes. Since you and I've worked together a whole lot. You've seen like the emails that I send out to vendors, especially when I'm starting to collect information in regards to timeline and floor plan needs and all that kind of stuff too. I'm very, very collaborative with the vendors as well, especially with my photographer friends. I always want to ask them like, hey, you just tell me how much time you need for this, that, and the other thing. I'm not going to dictate to you how much time you have for like family portraits. You tell me how long it's going to take you to do X, Y, Z. Of course, we collaborate together where I'm like, hey, we have this amount of time. How do you want to use it? Type situation. So I do have certain templated emails that I like to keep. I was just talking to Emma about this, one of my other associate planners, and about email etiquette and email just correspondences and how to appropriately like write an email and the tone that you use and the vocabulary you use and the grammar and all that kind of stuff too. One of my biggest pet peeves that I have is when I'm creating like a vendor team like thread is when someone like takes themselves out of the thread and they want to talk about that particular client's wedding, but they've now started a brand new fucking thread. And to me, that drives me absolutely insane because for me, that thread, then you don't have to also reply all. You don't have to do that. There is just the reply button you can use.
Yeah.
But I'm constantly having to circle back when I'm talking with vendors of like, hey, I need to put this back into this thread for organizational purposes so I don't lose it. So that's one of the boundaries that I do have. And I manage those expectations right up front. I mean, you've seen it like, hey, the information that I'm going to need from you, I need you to reply, not reply all, because people who reply all, stop doing that. Don't do that. Nobody cares what you have to say, except for the person who asked you. Anyway.
You also make it very clear that you are who we communicate with.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, is right off the bat is if I am communicating with you and I'm telling you like, hey, at this point in the planning process, stop talking to the couple, go ahead and start talking straight to me. I'm not trying to, it's not a takeover. I'm not trying to be like, it's my world now and you're just living in it. I'm not doing that just to be a bitch. I'm doing that, one, to alleviate the stress and the communication needs that the client now or our mutual couple is going to have, because now they've got family and friends that are bogging them down with a bunch of questions. And probably what you're asking of them, I have the answers for.
Sure.
So might as well. And also I want to make that transition of the point of contact transition already, because you're not going to go to the client on wedding day. Like the caterer's not going to go to the client being like, hey, we're missing 12 forks. You're going to come to the coordinator.
Right.
Or the planner and be like, yo, we're missing 12 forks. This is how we're going to resolve the issue, like whatever have you. So I want to already go ahead and make that transition process ahead of time. So that's a boundary that I kind of have, is that I try really hard to tell all of my vendor partners as much as I possibly can. I need y'all to keep it in the same thread together. Again, reply, not reply all. Try to, and I also explain those that I don't work with often or haven't worked with at all. I do explain to them like in a separate email, this is my workflow process. These are the documents that you're going to get in order for any questions that you may have. You probably are going to get a document with all of those answers. This is when you should expect this document to come into your inbox. But of course, I'm flexible in the sense of if you need something like, if in order for your workflow to work better and for you to, serve our mutual client the best, if you need certain information right this minute, okay, just go ahead and ask. That's fine. And I will give it to you if I have the information at that point. So, that's totally fine as well. I think that's kind of like really the big one. I'm sure that I've got like specific ones depending on the scenario or the situation in and of itself. I think for me, a lot of the boundaries that I do have are client boundaries, just because everybody has different expectations of how they want their wedding planning process to go. And so I try my darndest to really, tell them, hey, this, like, up front, like before they even book, this is what you're going to expect from me or from the team in and of itself. This is how we do our workflows and all that sort of thing too. So they can make that decision when they're mulling it over after our consultation call of like, hey, is this what is that what I want? Mm-hmm. Is this process, is this workflow okay? She brought you a twist tie. She wants you to throw it.
Oh, I don't see it.
It's down here on the floor. Okay. That's why.
It's okay, Mama. My biggest foundry. Yeah. My biggest vendor boundary. I don't really have a whole lot of them because I don't really deal with vendors as much as you do, like face to face kind of thing. Yeah. Actually, I deal with them more face to face than I do on the back end, if that makes sense. Yeah. So my biggest boundary is vendor galleries.
Ooh. Do tell.
Yeah. So you're not entitled to a vendor gallery.
Amen.
That is first and foremost. You are not entitled to a vendor gallery. I am not entitled to share the images with you. I'm sorry, baby. I'm in the middle of something. She's
Mama.
Very nicely tapping me. Yeah. So first and foremost, y'all aren't entitled to a vendor gallery ever by any photographer. I'm sorry. I know that hurts. I know you feel like you are, but you're not. So you will get, I think vendor galleries are important. Not everyone does. So you won't see every photographer want to be willing to give you images. That's just how it is. And you're just going to have to deal with it. Just write it off, move on. That's a big kind of thing that I have an issue with is like, don't come for me. If somebody else doesn't give you a gallery, but I do, like, I get it. You're going to be mad about that other photographer, but that's not my problem. Like, you get what you get from me and we move on, and you should do the same with every other photographer you ever come in contact with because it's not about you. Yes, we want to share them. Yes, I know what it means. Absolutely. I want to be collaborative with you. I want to make this a really, really great experience. Obviously, if we do really well together, I want to work together again. Like, cool. However, you don't get it right away.
Yeah.
You have a timeline. I have a timeline. The galleries go to the client first and foremost.
Oh, yes.
That's who is important. That's who they belong to. I mean, they belong to me, but they paid for them.
Correct.
So that's who gets them. Mm-hmm. Please don't come to me 3 days after the wedding and ask me if I can send you a picture of the cake. No, I can't. I love you, but no. I will when it's appropriate for me to send you the picture of the cake. Mm-hmm. But I'm not doing that right now. If I've shared it, you are more than welcome to use it. I'm not doing any more work than I already need to do.
Yep.
So my boundary is if anyone ever asks me for a vendor gallery, you get it after the client gets it.
Yep.
But I do send them out every 6 months. So
you do, yeah.
Regardless of if I've given it to you already or I haven't given it to you at all, you'll get it either at the 6 month mark, halfway through the year, or at the end of the year.
You're actually really good about sending galleries, like,
because I want you to have them.
I'm about to say, yeah, you're like relatively quick, honestly.
I want you to have them. Like, I get it. What is that?
It's just the monitor has got a like low battery.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
I get it. And I find it to be incredibly important for maintaining vendor to vendor relationships. I totally understand. I know what it means to get them and have them and use them, but you're not entitled to them.
Yeah.
So you have to go based off of my timeline. And if I give you a timeline and I tell you I will either send it to you when the gallery is finished and it's been given to the client and I have time to send them out because it takes time to send them out.
Yes.
Or you get them at the middle of the year or at the end of the year.
Yep.
Don't come to me 3 more times and ask me for them.
Oh,
because you're pushing your luck on getting them.
Yep.
So that's just my ick and
now,
my
let me ask you this,
soapbox.
Though. So if someone is like oh my God, I need to have like a picture of my cake like 24 hours after like this wedding has happened. How do you feel about those that bring their own like DSLR or like an iPhone or whatever, and they take pictures of their work like after like they're done like setting it up or whatever?
Personally, I don't care. I will say you will find other photographers that care very, 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 very much. Me, okay. I don't care. Many people take iPhone photos and whatever of their work. I don't care about that. What I do care about is you sharing that with the client, though.
What the hell?
Like people, they'll tag the client in it or whatever, and then that'll get shared. And like, I don't really care. Like, honestly, I don't care. It's not going to look the same. I know it's not going to look the same. And my stuff's gonna look better than your iPhone photo. I don't know. iPhones are doing some work out here, though. I'm a little nervous, but
the AI shit.
Yeah. I don't care because that saves me from having you come in my DMs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send it to you regardless. You just gotta wait. Like, yep. I'm very open about sending my stuff to people. And if you ask me, that's fine, but I will either give it to you right away because it's ready, or I will make you wait. Don't ask me again.
I've had Taylor, our last friend who is like on the podcast with us. She has told me like sometimes she'll text me and be like, the wedding I just did on Saturday, like I have the florist, I have the cake person, like in my email the very next day of like, yo, can I get a photo?
Stop doing that.
And I'm like, y'all probably didn't even pull it off your cards yet. Or maybe.
So so we all have workflows. We all have ways we do things. My workflow, I try and get a sneak peek out the next weekday of the wedding, if I'm able to. But I try and get a sneak peek out because I know we want to share it. I know the client wants to share it. I know the vendors want to share it. I know everyone wants to see what they've done for the last weekend that they've spent, a year and a half planning. I get it. I want to share it too. Like, everything needs to stay relative. We all want very quick turnaround times.
Yeah.
Sure. Stop asking. I'm gonna come through this speaker at you. You know who you are. Stop asking. You will get the photos. Like, it's okay, babe. You'll get them.
Bless.
You'll get them. I will share them. But I will say, if your cake was not impressive, I'm not going to put it out on the sneak peeks. Oh. If I'm being really, really fucking honest with you.
And it's valid, though. It's totally valid because it's your work. Right. And it's literally like your work.
But like, if it is not like front of mind, epic. I mean, I'm not sharing, like, obviously,
a little 6-inch white cutting cake with like a flower on it.
Yeah, like, I'm not sharing that. I get it that you put work into it, but that's not what I want to share. And I don't share a whole lot of stuff anyway. I share mostly of the client because that's who's important.
I literally was just about to say, like, the sneak peeks, y'all, like, they're not intended for the vendors.
Yeah.
Like, a sneak peek or whatever. I know why, like, you photographers do it because you guys are honestly battling those that are having the iPhone pics and the family that's posting it or whatever. You're beating them.
You're
trying to beat the punch like with them or whatever. Because I know, of course, and the couples too are going to get so excited. They want to share, like, they just got married the night before. Like, I get that and stuff. So yeah, the sneak peeks or whatever, I always feel blessed when I'm even given a sneak peek and I'm like in a very short amount of time frame. Yeah. Like, literally, like, you've done that to me a couple of times where like you've texted me like the gallery in my phone and I'm like, bitch, what the fuck? Did you like sleep? Like, what the hell? Like, I haven't even like recovered yet from the night before or from like 2 nights before or whatever have you. And I'm like, what the hell?
No, it's important. It's important to share. It's important to, for everyone to see it. And yes, I am trying to beat all of the iPhone people. And I want, my photo to be a profile picture and not somebody's iPhone photo. But
yes.
The client is first and foremost.
Yes.
So my biggest boundary is vendor galleries.
Yeah.
And then also, just over communicating timelines. That's another big boundary I have.
Yeah.
Because and also like making face-to-face contact with the people on the wedding day. I don't know if that's a boundary or if that's just something I do.
What do you mean?
Like, making sure I like introduce myself to everyone.
Oh, yes.
That's not really a boundary, but that's just something you should do. I wonder if we should go over like, how do we do that?
Wedding day etiquette?
Maybe like what we do on what, I don't know, vendor to vendor relationships, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, yeah.
That's a good one.
So I don't have a whole lot of vendor boundaries other than just like the galleries and timelines, making sure that that's.
Yeah. That's
like, I don't want somebody to railroad my timeline, but I'm also not going to railroad somebody else's timeline. Like we all got to be on the same page.
That's where I kind of have like an issue sometimes where I like butt heads with some people or with some vendors too, is that I've had a couple of vendors. Sometimes it's photographers. They're a little bit more high maintenance and they are like demanding of like, I need an hour and a half for bridal portraits.
Yeah, that's
and I'm like,
don't be ridiculous.
I'm sorry. What? You want an hour and a half for so you mean wedding party portraits? No. Oh, you mean like actual like just bridal portraits? You want an hour and a half? No.
I mean, that's just being absurd.
Then you should have really, if that's something that you really wanted to do, you should have encouraged your client to book like a bridal session.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
But taking a whole hour and a half just for like a way, if we don't even have that time, again, if we were there for like 24 hours, the entire wedding day in and of itself was 24 hours, like start to finish, sure, hour and a half, that's like a dime in a bucket, or what is it, drop in a bucket or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we've got a wedding, you know, which is very rare. Very rare that I'm going to be able to have that. So I think it's just, again, boundaries are important. Yes, from vendor to vendors, all that sort of thing too. But y'all have to also put it into perspective. I even sometimes put my own boundaries into perspective of like, okay, if this hard set boundary that I have, if this is really not going to work for this particular vendor, is it really going to kill me that I bend it just a little bit in order for us to have like the end, like to have a successful wedding day?
Right.
Okay, then I will stretch. But am I going to then like continue to break that boundary every single time and then put myself into a position where I'm not being able to serve my best? Hell no.
Yeah. Like if somebody gives you an inch, don't take a mile.
For reals.
So,
and then also if you are a vendor that I have now having to bend my boundaries several times, you're going in the blacklist pile. It's not happening.
Referrals are important too. So
yeah, collaboration in general is just really important. But I feel like, yeah, for me, to kind of like wrap it up, for boundaries, it's really client to client, me to client, boundaries, just so that I am being able to show up for them at the best of my abilities, that sort of thing too. I talk about, again, office hours, like my off days on Mondays. That's sometimes where I've had to remind people of like, I understand that you guys have had a great weekend of rest and y'all had a great time or whatever. That's a work day for me.
But that's also kind of to pivot into personal boundaries on not just like personal life boundaries, but like personal boundaries within the industry of like how to maintain that work to life ratio to where we're not, subjected to hustle culture and all that stuff.
Yes.
You have not really. Not always.
Not always, especially during like when it's crazy wedding season. Yeah. Like for example, I think it was like yesterday. So like I worked on Monday, even though technically Mondays are supposed to be my off days,
but nobody else knows that.
Well, except for now that I put it out there on the fucking internet. Anyways, but there are sometimes, but like client emails or whatever, if I am responding to client emails, here's my little, like, I'm breaking a secret. If I'm responding to client emails, I'm scheduling them that they're going out on Tuesday the next morning.
Yeah.
So, and the same thing with like, now some people are like, yeah, I'm not checking my email even on my off days or whatever. I'm just a person where, especially during wedding season, I am checking my email at least once a day, even on my off days. And I am just taking a temperature check to seeing like if there's anything on metaphorical fire.
Sure.
Because if it is, then I will address it. But if they're just blatant questions that I'm like, hey, I know that this can be answered like the next business day, like that I'm in the office or whatever, then I will answer it then. But again, and that's something that I have to, it's like a pro-con type situation or whatever. But I try really hard to take at least one day out of the week. I try for it to be on Mondays, but at least one day of the week, like Monday through Friday, where it is a day off where I have to, one, rest, but two, maintain a household. Like I have to get personal shit done because obviously Saturdays and Sundays, they're just not, that's a work day for us.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
do you have something similar?
Yeah, I try to maintain office hours. I pretty much get off the computer at 5.
Okay.
That is like my personal thing is like I'm done at 5. So I get off the computer and I just shut it all down. And then I just kind of take care of whatever it is I need to take care of, cook dinner, all that stuff.
Yeah.
One of my biggest personal boundaries though is this has nothing to do with anything other than my mental health. I only follow people on the internet that I personally know. I don't follow random people as far as like people in the industry. I don't follow them
just for shits and giggles.
Because
nice.
I went through a huge comparison issue when I first started, and I was told to unfollow everyone. So I did. And that's been a fantastic boundary of mine. So if I don't personally know you or have personally worked with you before, I'm not following you just for fun. Also, it kind of fucks up my algorithm if I follow you anyway, because you're not who I need to be pushed in front of. But yeah, so I don't follow like inspo shit. If I need inspo, I go on Pinterest for like 3 minutes and that's it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't think I knew that.
That's just like a personal boundary that I do that might be beneficial to others, because I find that it's a little overwhelming and you start seeing highlight reels and you start comparing yourself and comparing, your work and all that stuff. So
I just don't even like open it anymore. That's why.
Well, I have to open it.
I know. I was about to say.
I have to open it. So I have to like put boundaries on what I see when I do open it.
And that's where I'm unhealthily currently right now, where I'm just like, people have reached out to me, DM. They're like,
are you okay?
Yeah. They literally are like, are you fine? Or like they'll text me, those that are like, obviously they have my number. They'll be like, I haven't seen you post in a while. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yep, I'm just in the thick of wedding season. But in the back of my head, I'm like, I just don't want to see what anybody else is doing because I'm going to feel shitty about myself.
Yeah. And it keeps me off of the internet for any other, it keeps me specifically Instagram. I mean, I TikTok doom scroll all the time, but specifically Instagram, it keeps me off of Instagram unless I need to be on it for some reason. So now I rarely just scroll through Instagram unless I'm like actively trying to push my algorithm or like finding outside like clients or whatever. But it's really just to interact with the clientele that I already have. So I follow all of my couples and they follow me, and like I interact with them all the time on that. And then so I don't let it happen because it's toxic. So because I'm starting to get galleries back now. I'm downloading them too, like from springtime, whatever. And I'm like, oh, I want to share this so badly. But it also like, it takes so much goddamn time. It does take a lot of time.
Especially when I'm downloading like photos and shit. God damn. It does so much freaking time.
Yeah. It does take time.
So maybe you'll see like all the spring weddings that I did when it's fucking December.
Maybe. Or just schedule them for spring next year.
Oh, valid. Yeah. There you go.
But yeah, boundaries are important. Set them, figure out what works for you guys. Take a deep.
I need you guys to, cause this is like literally my favorite topic. I could talk about this like all day long. Go onto our Instagram, Behind the Aisle podcast. I want to know what some of y'all's boundaries are.
Yeah.
I would love that because maybe we can learn from one another.
Yeah.
I'm always curious to see like what other things, because sometimes I like to try other people's boundaries to see if it'll work for me.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Or if we talked about a boundary that you want to implement and you think was helpful, we'd love to hear that too. And if it actually ends up working for you, because we love our boundaries over here. It keeps us in business. Where can they find you, Katie, if they want to find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, you can find me on Instagram at Tillyandeal. It's TILLYANDDEAL. What about you?
At Serendipity Photography, SARA, like my name in Dippity Photography. I'm not going to spell the whole thing out for you. And please, if you have not done so already, give us a little rate and review of the podcast. It helps the algorithm. We want this to be seen. And if you are not following us, please give us a follow over at behindtheaislepodcast.com. And then also, if you want to submit for What the Fuck Wednesdays, we need to hear from you. We are filming our next one very shortly, so we need to hear from you. We need that content, and we love your tea. You can find the submission form at www.behindtheaislepodcast.com and be anonymous or not. And yeah, thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.